Okay, and I will hand over to Ant. Ant, do you want to start by introducing yourself, and then you've got actually lots of time this morning. You've got up to 30 minutes of presentation and questions, so go for it.
Awesome. Before I get started, can you see the screen that I've shared?
Yes, we can.
Amazing. So I'll introduce myself briefly in detail in a little bit. But first of all, good day, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I recently put together this presentation as a downloadable PDF, and the intention was to help people make smarter decisions when it comes to investing in their marketing, particularly video content. Over the last decade, I've seen many people, in particular solopreneurs, make the same mistakes when they try and invest in video. As entrepreneurs, what we typically face is decision overload. We have a million things going on, so we struggle to know where our attention should be placed, what the problems are that we need to be dealing with, how much we should be attributing to those to fix them. So my hope in doing this presentation is some of you will go away with a clearer process to help you make better decisions when it comes to investing in your marketing, especially around video. I was considering making this very specifically around animation, and then I was like, let's create something more useful and just everyone can learn from my abundance of mistakes over the last 10 years. So without further ado, who am I? That's me. I've worked in video marketing for over 10 years, where I've personally been involved in the creation of hundreds and literally hundreds of videos. I now run Motion Manor, the ethical animation studio, where we achieve great things with video for people who care more about impact than profit. I'm a performance coach. I work with purpose-led entrepreneurs who run creative businesses to help them grow and make more impact. But most importantly, I've actually seen firsthand what projects fall flat on their face and which ones thrive. I've worked with people who claim to be experts, but really have the insight of a teaspoon. To put it simply, I've learned the hard way and put it all here so other people don't have to go and make the same mistakes I have. To clarify before I get into the next 20 minutes, I just think it's super important to define the terms I'm going to be using. So when I say video, I am broadly referring to pretty much anything that moves on screen. We'll just leave it at that. Video production is reality. So that is stuff captured with cameras. And when I refer to animation, that is video created digitally. So graphics, illustrations, characters, motion design. Now, what's really handy in terms of this presentation is whenever I say the word video, you can broadly swap that for something else, and most of the principles will still apply. So all the things I'm going through will apply if you're going, do I need a new website? Do I need to go invest in a marketing brochure? I don't know, but a lot of these rules will actually apply very, very broadly. So getting into the issue that we're all facing. The average attention span, I don't know why that's moving so slowly. The average attention span of a human is lower than that of a goldfish now, which means getting people to pay attention is bloody difficult. You may have considered video at some point in the past to help overcome this, but there is a problem typically when investing in video. Most people think it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of energy, it's going to cost a lot of money. And the last thing you need is a costly digital paperweight that just gets a few vanity engagements, and if you're lucky, a LinkedIn tumbleweed. So the reality is video can be powerful, but it isn't by default. So a power drill is a fantastic tool, but if you're using it to bake a cake, you're not going to get the best results in the world. So when video is implemented well, it can make a drastic impact on what it is you're trying to achieve. But there are a huge variety of factors that need to be considered to make it more than a novelty fluff piece. And unfortunately, there are a lot of content creators out there that really excel at creating novelty fluff pieces. So for video content to shine, it does need a purpose beyond looking pretty on your about page. So more specifically, it needs a very clear reason to exist. It needs a tangible problem to solve, which brings us on to why this document exists. So lasering in on that problem is why we're here. The blueprint gives a time-tested 8-step process to gaining laser-focused clarity on what it is you actually need, as well as the crucial information that you need to consider before making a decision to move forward. And what we find nowadays when we actually go with clients through this process is at the end, they normally go in a different direction. They might come to us and go, we think we need to go invest in this. But then actually, once we've been through 8 steps, they're like, actually, we need to go in a completely different direction because the problem we're trying to fix isn't the problem that's actually the issue. This simple yet incredibly powerful process will save you wasting thousands of pounds and countless hours backtracking. And our hope in sharing it is that you can create more effective content moving forward so you can go on to go and create a positive social impact. As I like to summarize it, is create content with intent, and then and only then will you actually start to see results. So jumping into the blueprint, the first challenge, which most people overlook, which is arguably the most important, is actually getting clear on the very specific problem that you're trying to address with that specific investment. So to borrow a definition from Google, a problem is a matter or situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needed to be dealt with or overcome. The problem can be anything, but what's most important before anything else is figuring out what you're really trying to solve. Because once you think you know what the problem is, you want to dig a little bit deeper, because then you can explore what will happen if you don't solve that problem. Will the situation get worse? Will it stay the same? Because nothing's going to change as a result of you trying to overcome this. It might not be the best place for you to actually spend money to help you grow your business. So having a video without a clear purpose is like setting sail without a destination in mind. You'll eventually end up somewhere, but there's a very good chance it's not going to be Tahiti. So to put it simply, get super clear on the problem, because then you know what it is you hope the video will achieve. And every step after this can help you meet that goal. The second one, and it's always important to address early, is the budget that's being looked that you're going to invest in whatever this campaign is. One of the worst questions we get asked is, how much does a video cost? It's not a very good question. There are way too many variables. A much better question is, what is the video worth if, and only if, it solves the problem outlined in step 1? So as a general rule of advice is people shouldn't spend big money to fix small problems, but also don't look to spend small money to fix big problems. Now, this part is normally an eye-opener, because what we realize is actually the value of getting this right could be in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands, but the person only wants to spend a couple hundred, or vice versa. The problem they're trying to solve actually isn't worth that much to the organization. So then the money could be better spent elsewhere. So as I've said, if the answer is not a lot, you're probably better off spending that money elsewhere. So it's really worth exploring what is the potential reward of solving the problem or cost saving of solving that problem. And that'll help influence really how much you should be spending on the project. So just quickly going into some quick math. Something we get asked a lot is, how do you determine the value of something that isn't monetary? For example, time. If it's not going to increase sales, it's going to save hours. How do you figure out the monetary reward? It's simple. So you're going to calculate how much time will be saved over 1 month in hours as a result of making this investment. Multiply that by the hourly rate of the person whose problem it is to deal with that. And then the result is the value. And then you can expand that over time. So for example, let's say you waste 3 hours on something weekly that can be fixed with a video. It could be email follow-up to prospects, or it could be training for employees. We'll say you pay yourself a living wage at $9.90. So weekly, that is costing you £90. Monthly, it's costing you just under 400. Annually, you're spending just under 4.5 grand repeating yourself. So if you put that in the context of actually spending a couple hundred or even a few thousand addressing that, isn't a bad investment in the long term. A really good example of this is, I have a friend who's a mortgage advisor. He would have people book appointments on their website using Calendly links. And then what would happen is he'd have so many taper off that wouldn't turn up. He'd have a meeting where they weren't really committed, or they wouldn't answer a lot of the questions. He ended up wasting a hell of a lot of time in these meetings, especially the ones that actually showed up. So what he created was a professional video of him essentially going, "Hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. Really appreciate you've booked this meeting. I'm looking forward to meeting you." And it did 3 things. One, it actually drastically increased the turnout rate to the people that actually turned up to the meeting, because that video would go out before the call. It actually increased his visibility in terms of building trust, because they were seeing his face And then thirdly, it actually increased the overall conversion in terms of the meeting because people were much more invested in the meeting and were much better prepared. So overall, he saved a lot of time in the follow-up, but it actually increased revenue as well because more people were investing and going with him as a result of that taking place, or by making this one investment in a specific video because he knew what problem he wanted to solve. So these can range from answering customer queries, sales calls, training employees. Who knows? The sky's literally the limit. We've done a ton of random stuff, but again, it comes back to number one, articulating the problem. The third one, and this one, it normally blows my mind in terms of how many people we communicate with that are trying to create a video and they're willing to invest thousands in this, but they actually don't really know who it is they're selling to or their target avatar is. So really getting clear on who the target audience is you are trying to reach. It doesn't matter if it's a prospect, if it's a customer or an employee, but the clearer picture you can paint, the better. So as an example, which is more specific, saying we target women in sustainability or 25 to 13-year-old female entrepreneurs in the sustainability sector, plant-based, they absolutely love barley. I know it's a little bit on the nose, but the second gives you a lot more information that, again, will influence the rest of the decisions down the line in terms of the content that is used to target them. And what it allows you to do more than anything is it ensures your requirements are determined by the audience and not arbitrarily ones set by yourself. Because again, I think in the creative industry, sometimes what we get is people will come to us and they'll go, I've got this idea, I want to do this. And it's normally what they think is cool, but it doesn't necessarily line up to what the audience wants or prefers based on their demographic. So it really helps focus in the creative content. Moving on to step 4, which is the stage. So understanding the amount of exposure your audience has had to your brand will really help you understand their mindset. Because this information, again, is going to help you influence a lot of factors in the video, such as duration, but also the psychology of where they are at that point in time. So for example, someone who is engaged with your brand for a while is far more likely to pay attention to longer content due to the sunk cost fallacy. That essentially means a person is more likely to continue to invest where they have already invested. And that applies to money as well as attention. So again, this is really important with employees because you know if they're going to be forced to watch the video, you can be there as long as they want because they're being paid to actually watch the video, whereas a prospect that's never heard of you isn't going to sit down and watch a 15-minute video on your brand and your life story. So moving on from this is normally the reality check time, where we need to address some harsh truths with a lot of people. So in the previous 4 steps, if you have more than one problem, audience, or stage, you need more than one video. And this is probably the biggest mistake we see a lot of our prospects or clients try and make, is they turn to us and go, we've got 3 different audiences, 2 different services, and we want to create a 4-minute video that talks about everything. From first-hand experience, nothing falls flatter on its face than a video where the client has tried to talk to too many people with too many things at once. Audiences crave simplicity and clarity, so give them what they want. And this is something we hammer really hard with people that we're working with. There are no ifs and no buts. It is better for you to have 6 30-second videos than 1 3-minute video. And if you need more than 1 video, and this is something that's come up quite recently, now we're working a lot more with strategy, is which one do you actually invest in first? So this answer is super simple. If we address step 2, the budget, we can evaluate the reward of solving that problem, because tackling the one that's going to have the biggest impact allows you to then go and reinvest in the other areas. So you can essentially use it as a prioritization calculator. You clearly evaluate the problem and then the value of the problem for each audience and then each thing that you're trying to create. And then that will allow you to determine which one you should address. Again, don't spend small money to fix big problems. So at this point, if we're super clear, it's like we've got 1 audience, we have 1 problem we're trying to fix, there's 1 stage at which we're talking to them, then we can move on to the viewing context. So for your video to succeed, you need to consider how the video will actually be seen. So for example, is your audience on their phone or computer? As it says here, 57% of all video content is now viewed on mobile. And the transition we've made over the last 10 years is a lot of the content we're now creating is either square or vertical. So it's optimized for viewing platforms based on input we're getting from the clients in terms of where is their audience and where are they engaging. Will it actually go on social media, or is it going to go on other platforms? And are they choosing to watch it, or is it a requirement? So some simple examples, is it a video at a conference? This is super important because if it's at a conference, we know that there's going to be very limited audio as well as duration could be an issue. The audience may turn up mid-video if it's on a loop. So we have to make sure that that's factored into the narrative because we don't want to be portraying something very negative and then have their brand appear if the audience then turns up at that point in time. So we have to consider how can we make the content cyclical so it can loop. Is it a paid advert on mobile? So using vertical video, so it is optimized for viewing. Not only that, there's more real estate on the screen. So not only is more information shared, it actually takes longer for people to scroll past. So it has a higher chance of catching their attention. These are the little things that they wouldn't consider. So if something is horizontal, you can actually scroll by it very, very quickly. Lastly, is international audience. So the cultural differences in how visuals can be interpreted. So we've had clients in the past where they might have an office in London, but they might also have an office in China. Now, the cultural differences vary greatly. So we have to consider what may be offensive here, what may be offensive there, but also minimizing on-screen text because that's going to mitigate any translation issues. So moving on to the duration. This quote I absolutely love, and I did steal it from Matari, who stole it from someone else, I believe. Actually, she posted it on my LinkedIn like a few months ago. Your content should be as long as it needs to be and not a second more. And this comes down to, again, so the sunk cost fallacy previously mentioned. The more a prospect is aware of you, the longer your content can be. But if they're not aware of you, you don't want to bore them or they will just keep going. So that familiarity will determine how long the video should be. So typically we say short form content, less than 90 seconds, long form is more than 90 seconds. If the prospect is completely new, you should really be aiming for as short as possible. And your focus is brand awareness and familiarity. At this stage, the audience doesn't care about benefits as much as the client might want to talk about that. Really what they want to hear about is the transformation that they're going to experience as a result of potentially learning more about this brand. Again, on the other hand, if the content is internal or for HR purposes, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 15, it can be 20. It doesn't matter because the person watching it has a legal obligation to watch the video. They're either being paid to, it's part of their training, it's part of their contract. You don't really have to worry about it being short, just keeping it engaging and educational. Moving on to step 7, and one that very often gets overlooked is just eyeballs. Creating a video is only half the battle, and it's making sure that people actually see it. And by combining an engaging plan with an engaging video, you can ensure that the video actually gets attention. And it doesn't matter if this is a one-page checklist of these are all the steps that I'm going to take to ensure that my investment is going to get seen as much as possible from an awareness point of view. Those clear, actionable steps are far more effective than a 10-year plan that never gets implemented. The one thing that pains us over the years is when someone will invest in the video and then what happens is they'll stick it on the bottom of an about page and then it never sees the light of day again. We actually want to be creating strategies to go, how are people going to be seeing this so it actually addresses step 1 and helps you overcome that objective. And then lastly, this one's super simple. When do you need it by and why? So properly exploring the earlier steps will give you a better understanding of the value of addressing this issue and how soon it needs to be addressed. As it says here, lower quality productions with a clear message, audience and purpose will always outperform beautiful projects with ambiguous messaging. And the challenge with short deadlines is the first thing that gets compromised on a short deadline is the time spent on ideation, brainstorming, and creative direction. And if this presentation's taught anybody anything, it's that it's crucial that those things are done right. So moving on, just a summary, it's not rocket science, but taking the time to work through these questions will give you all the clarity you need to take the next steps forward and make the most of your investment when it comes to video marketing. So us in a nutshell at Motion Manor, we believe storytelling has the power to change the world. And fundamentally, that comes from a long story. At the beginning of lockdown, me and a few friends, we set up a book club and we fell down this rabbit hole of psychology books. And we just became fascinated with what made people tick. And essentially, we are who we are because of the experiences we've had throughout our entire life, the stories we've been told, the people we've known, all these things accumulated have made us a product of that environment. So if we apply that to the human species, we are where we are now as a society because of the stories and beliefs we've held for the last however many thousands of years and the stories we've told over those lifetimes. So projecting that forward, if we actually begin to tell more positive stories and better messaging, we can actually steer the messaging and beliefs we're going to have in the future. So fundamentally, the stories we tell can change the world. I've completely lost where I am. So that's where we are today as an animation studio. That's why we leverage the power and potential of animation to create a positive social impact. We do it in 3 ways. We work with people who care more about impact than profit, such as B Corps, non-profits, and vegan brands. We also reinvest a portion of our revenue into the creation of video content and strategy for causes in climate, sustainability, and animal welfare sectors. We're currently doing some really cool projects with Vegan FTA, who are based over in Australia, and they're doing some amazing work in terms of animal rights advocacy. Lastly, we have a completely transparent breakdown of what being ethical means to us, what that means to you, and what our climate objectives are for the future. We're trying to change the world with video, one audience at a time. So that's everything in a nutshell. I hope those were useful. I appreciate I shaved 2 steps off. Originally it was 10 steps, but the last 2 were crap, so I binned them. I thought I'd keep it better, more concise. But otherwise, I hope that was useful. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Fantastic, Ant. Really good. And I know we've got some questions. I can see Ollie's already got his hand up, and I also see some questions from Heather in the chat. So I'm going to hand over to Ollie first of all for first question, and then Heather, if you want to be ready with yours, then we'll do that. Go for it, Ollie.
Thanks for that. It's really interesting. From my perspective, so I'm sort of editor of a vegan magazine. If we were to make a piece of video content, it might be because some of the talk I felt was more steering, potentially, or assuming that, say, it's like a business, you want consumers to start educating about the brand and get them to convert to a sale. Would I, for like the step where I'm converting like the reward and cost saving, would that then be more what I feel that potentially this amount of views might translate into like traffic on our website and engagement with the content? Like, how would you suggest it be slightly tailored for this sort of situation where it's almost content for the like interesting content rather than speaking about necessarily our brand as such?
So it's a bit of pretty complicated scenario because like it depends really what the revenue streams are and what the overall objective of creating those videos can be. So if at the end of the day, if the actual article can get just as much engagement as a video, it might not be the best move. But the thing with video is in general is it's far more shareable and people will typically engage more with it. So you might have key highlight pieces where you're like, actually, this is a really important story. We want to make a splash on it. But then the most important part would be creating a campaign around that to maximize visibility. So it wouldn't necessarily just be creating that one video. It could be, how do we create smaller bits of content from that that can then actually be reshared to drive traffic to the article, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ant. Okay, Heather, do you want to, you've asked a couple of questions in the comments, so go for it.
I put a genius in there for stopping people from wasting my time on calls. That's quite a clever one.
That's good.
I can even do that myself a lot quicker actually than waiting for people. I just heard from another lady and it sort of really resonated with me that first you get the people that are skimmers who like to read like 3 bullet points and then they get bored. And then you do the long copy for the people that want the details and to get the full educational, or if it's a sales page, they want to get all the details of what's included and all of that, where some people just want to know how much it is. And quite often people will put that at the bottom and they won't go to the bottom, they'll only go to the first part. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that are with video.
So there are different approaches. So the first easy one is going to be if you create multiple videos from the same base, because then you can actually split test or use them in different contexts. So for example, we're currently doing a investment video for someone, so they're going to have a longer 3-minute video, but then what they're going to have is they're going to have like 30-second edits, 60-second edits that will be used in different contexts. So that can cater to different audiences. My personal advice would be not to cater to everybody, because trying to cater to everybody alienates a majority. So it would literally be more of a understanding who your audience is through split testing or learning what resonates most with them from a psychology point of view, and actually potentially doubling down on that.
I guess that's the
helps.
trouble. My audience is quite a widespread net to figure out who they are. Because actually the trouble I have is that they need to be educated a little bit about what it is I do first, because they've never heard of environmental health, food safety and all these things first. And I'm finding that hard to do in a short way. But I guess it's having a hook video and then having a longer video that they can
Yes. So this is similar to the conversation with the mortgage advisor that we had previously, because essentially using mortgages as a crude example, there's a lot of information they actually need to apply for a mortgage. They can't just have you book a call and go give me your name, email, and that. So essentially, from a actual messaging point of view, his message entirely focused on what is the problem that they're actually trying to overcome, and then what will happen if they solve that problem and how he can help. And that was it. So the focus was, how do I get people to book meetings? And then there was an educational follow-up that was essentially the content that was more steered to them and their needs, which included the automated video of, hi, my name is this, looking forward to our call, because you can potentially control the information that gets sent, or they can pick and choose the information they want access to. So you could send with the video a follow-up email saying, did you want to learn more about, and have it automated with links to this website or links to another video or links to, and kind of do it that way, rather than having everything in one place and go and find it. It's kind of creating more of a narrative with where they want to go.
Yeah, and I was thinking that when I do send them a review or a follow-up sort of email, basically, but it's like a document, then you could have the video that makes it a lot more fun for some people, because it might sound boring if it's about food safety. So I guess it's a way to make it more fun. But also in the video, you could have that you've broken it into titles, right, that make it bullet point for some people who are going along the line at the bottom to skim what you're going to talk about. And
Absolutely.
then my question in the chat was, is it best to, I know it's not catering to all people, but it's catering to all like reading or learning styles, is to have it in writing with the video, have the captions, have some bullet points if people are half listening.
So I would always advocate for captions. Just because of sound limitations on devices, and some things won't autoplay in terms of volume, some will, but also it's targeting two learning methods at the same time. So when they're reading and listening, it will sink into their brain more. And there's a lot of auto transcribing software out there, which is like fantastic. Subly, I don't know what the entry level thing for that is, but it's you can drag and drop video in, it will auto transcribe, and it's user friendly. You can move the transcriptions around, and that's always really, really handy.
I've noticed you can do it for free on YouTube. It is a bit fatty, but would you recommend then you cut down the number of words in the captions, even if it's not exact word for word what you're saying, or do people like it to be similarly not synced, but you know what I mean? Like subtitles.
I don't think it's going to make a difference.
All right, cool.
I don't think the captions, I would just leave the captions as they are. If you were going to do them animated, so they're like big call out statements, you could condense them down so it makes the keywords pop, but that's more of a
that's just
more of an Instagram TikTok kind of approach, and it's creating more work essentially in the process, as opposed to just having those captions.
I was just going to add a couple of things to what you just said there, and on the captioning as well, because the other thing is that obviously YouTube's owned by Google, and if you put your videos on YouTube and they're captioned, Google will make those captions searchable. So that's another really good reason to do that. In terms of transcribing, Heather, I mean, I've mentioned it before, but the software I prefer to use for transcription is Otter.ai, which is pretty good, and it does learn your voice and it learns the things you say quite often. I would definitely recommend that, and I've got a code that will get you some free hours on it that I'll chuck in the chat in a minute, if that's any good. Right, Mitali, you've got your hand up, and then after that, I know Jane put a question in the chat as well. So go for it, Mitali.
Great talk, and really got a lot from that. My question was the bit where my ears pricked up, and I think it did for Heather as well. We're kind of sharing a brain sometimes, which is a little bit worrying. Where my ears pricked up was the bit where you said about the mortgage. Was it a mortgage advisor or was it a financial planner?
Mortgage advisor.
And he's like sending a video out, and I thought, oh, I liked that, because what I do is I send my book out, and I'm not going to stop doing that, because sending a book out has a different effect from the video, in that people feel like you've given them a gift and then they want to reciprocate. So it really works really well as like a lead-in. And I usually get a lot of people turning up for their meetings because they feel crap for not turning up, and I've got to send them a free book, sometimes across the planet as well. However, getting them or expecting them to read the entire book or even read a chapter is bloody impossible, because I know what it's like. I'm really busy and I don't get a chance to read as much as I want to. So I quite like the idea of video. Where the issue is which video would you say, in that sense, you would need more than one video? Because people come to me for they're at different stages of the book journey. So one video can't do it all. But then how would I know where they are at that journey until I have the meeting? Does that make sense? Yeah.
So first of all, to come back to the first point, I absolutely would not stop sending the book in the post. I think it's brilliant. People, when you get an unsuspecting parcel, it's like Christmas. I think there's a lot of psychological value in terms of receiving something in the post nowadays. A combination of both would be brilliant. So the one that jumps to my mind immediately, and I don't know if it's the best way forward, would be finding a way to distribute calendar options. So having different automation linked to different calendar bookings. So for example, the immediate one that comes to mind is different markets and kind of what they're looking for, because then you can create one tailored video for each person, and then having respective calendar links for them based on answers that they put into Calendly. So this gets into the realm of automation. So Mark will probably be able to offer far more wisdom there. But you could essentially set up a Calendly link and one of the options is a drop down that is what it is you want to talk about, what is the meeting about, I don't know, and then automatically link a Zapier that sends a different video based on their response to that actual drop down. It's one of those things where it does require a bit of legwork up front in terms of how you set it up, but it actually saves a lot of bloody time down the line. But not only that, the biggest benefit of video is it's like having a photo of yourself in your email signature. It builds trust. It creates a sense of them knowing you before you've even spoken, especially for cold people. So it's always finding ways to build rapport with people. So when you have that first meeting, they've got your book in the post, you sent them a nice smiley video via email, they feel like you're already best friends. So it's already getting things off in terms of a really, really good start. But in terms of, in terms of understanding where they are in that journey and the different outcomes, that might need a more specific conversation and brainstorm with the whiteboard to kind of figure out where they are and what their challenge is. The easier answer up front is going to be you can create a general video that's more just a heads up, really looking forward to our call, just to set expectations, etc. And then niche down the line when you've kind of got that set up. But I hope that's some food for thought.
That's great. Thank you.
Excellent. Good advice there, Ant. Thank you. Good. Jane, you had a question.
Yeah, and you know, in LinkedIn, I've noticed more and more that people are using that little video clip function on their profile. Are there any rules about that? Because I've seen some where they're just like all over the place, and then others where you see people going into a blurb of speaking and they're almost shouting at you because they're trying to do it so quickly. They're making me frightened. So is there any recommendations you'd give for that before I do it and frighten people?
So from a technical specification point of view, No idea. I'll be honest. From a messaging point of view, the strength primarily is going to come in terms of that brand familiarity and simplicity. For a blurb, I would aim to keep it as short as possible. Like, I would not go over 60 seconds.
Right.
I would absolutely script it and rehearse it, and try and make it as natural as possible. I mean, there are general rules to filming video in terms of the simplest one is if you're going to record it on your phone, make sure there is an abundance of light. You want as much light in the environment as possible. That'll help elevate it and make it a bit more professional. But I would always advocate to people, learn to summarize what it is you do in one sentence. And it's a really, really interesting exercise to really narrow that down. So for us, I'd just say at Motion Manor, we achieve great things with video for people who care more about impact than profit. And then I'd go, if you want to learn more, I'd love to have a chat, check my About Us for a Calendly link, blah, 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 blah. So add a little call to action, but I'd aim to keep it under 30 seconds.
Wow. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm coming.
So Amy's just said in the chat that she thinks it's 30 seconds maximum.
Brilliant.
So that's good to know. And yeah, as Jay, as you were saying, it is your elevator pitch, right? So use your 30 seconds at networking groups every week to practice it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And actually, you can see that because I know I've seen Ant obviously at a few different networking groups, and I think it's a great example. You kind of practice what you preach, because your pitch is always very slick, very kind of well practiced, well rehearsed. And I know the other person that I know does that a lot is Kaylee, who's not here today. But you know, I think it's telling that you guys are both sort of in that space of doing that kind of stuff, and you've just nailed that pitch every time. So.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. So that is true. Lisa is pretty good as well, I must say. I'm not going to use the naughty swear word, Jay. You know I never swear. Excellent. Right. We might have time for one super short question. Otherwise, I'm going to just kind of hand over to Jane to tell you about how you can stay in touch with the group. But raise your hand if you've got one last question. Going. Gone. Right. Okay, Jane. So the first thing obviously is if you could let people know the WhatsApp groups, that's probably a good place to start.
Yep. We have two WhatsApp groups. One is for general chit chat, advice, support, and it's a very active group, I must say. Sometimes I walk away and come back and go, 20 messages, what's happened? And the other group is a social media WhatsApp group where you put your links on there. It doesn't matter whether it's TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and whoever's available jumps on and goes and likes and comments, and this gives elevation to the analytics. So if you would like to join both or either, one is for general conversation, other for social media pushing, just drop me your mobile number with your STD code +44, obviously UK, and we'll get you added to the two groups.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. And I think then the other kind of shout out is, I don't know how much of a lead time we've got on it now, but if anyone wants to be a speaker, as Ant has done today, again, Jane, you maintain the list of those and the schedule. I think we've got about the next 3 or 4 in, haven't we? From memory?
Yes. We're looking at sort of the end of October onwards, because we've got a bank holiday in between, and the last Monday before Christmas, Sam always does a quiz. Which is going to be a compulsory Christmas hat or costume or both this year.
I can't believe we're talking about Christmas in August.
I know. I was saying this to my nan last week, because she was 93 last week, lover, and she's usually so up and sprightly, and I was saying to her about how time goes by. She went, yeah, it'll be Easter eggs before you know it. Oh no, I haven't done Christmas yet.
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but yeah, if anyone does want to be a speaker, then if you contact Jane, she'll do all the magic. So always looking for more speakers. But fantastic talk today, Ant. Thank you so much for that. Loads of gems in there. I've written a whole page of notes, and really just fantastic stuff. So thank you.
Well, we'll let you know once Mark lets me know it's been uploaded, and I'll let everybody, including yourself,
know. We'll get that onto the YouTube
Awesome.
channel and share a link out. Good stuff. Excellent. I'll get that done as soon as it's processed.
I do have a more detailed PDF version where a lot of the stuff I was saying is in the PDF. That's why the actions are in there, because it's designed to be worked through. So if anyone wants it, give me a shout.
Oh, yeah,
If
that would be
and
good.
if you have a link for that, I don't know whether it's something you have online, but if you have a link for that or anything equivalent and you want to send that to me, I'll put it in the comments for the video when we upload it to the YouTube channel as well.
That'd be
So
brilliant.
anything like that. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, I've just realised I should have stopped the recording at the end of the questions rather than all of that last bit. So I'm going to stop now.
It doesn't matter.